I know we've only known each other for 4 weeks and 3 days, but to me, it seems like 9 weeks and 5 days.
All right. Welcome, all my passionate plant people and garden enthusiasts, to another edition of the Let's Get Growing show, the Sunday edition here on the Urban Gardener channel. I'm Enoch. I'm your host today. We've got a really great show for you. We're continuing our weekend in discussions on beekeeping today. So for on our Sunday show today, we've got joining with us here in just a little bit on the show, Laryssa Kwoczak of Beekeeping Made Simple. So she's going to join with us here in a little bit, talk all about her beekeeping experiences and teach us just a little bit more about this just really fascinating hobby or whatever you want to call it, lifestyle, even for some beekeepers. This has just been a really great weekend so far. Yesterday on the show, for our Saturday show, we had Cayman Reynolds from Tennessee Bees joining with us to talk all about his journey in beekeeping, as well as a bunch of just really great, awesome knowledge. He's really knowledgeable about beekeeping and shared with us a bunch of great information about beekeeping, as well as, telling us all about, again, his journey and also the Beekeepers North American Honeybee Expo. I'll get this right. North American Honeybee Expo that he founded. And yeah, just sounds like a really great event. I want to go check that out. And also yesterday too, we were following Jonathan Hargis, the Hive Doctor, joined up with us to talk all about his gardening channel, his honey company, and all of the things that he does in natural organic beekeeping. So that was another great conversation. So if you didn't get a chance to check that out, you'll definitely want to go back and check out our Sunday edition of the show yesterday. Really great conversations with these really awesome beekeepers. And definitely here right at the top of the show, though, if you can here, definitely click the like button and hit that thumbs up there. Punch the subscribe button as well too, is that bell notification, so that you can be notified of our upcoming videos and live streams. And definitely share with all of your garden friends, and let them know about our Let's Get Growing show here every Saturday and Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And also, big huge shout out to all of you who are watching on the replay, because I know we're a live show, but YouTube's awesome about with having these up after the live streams for you to watch on a replay anytime you want. So I really appreciate all of you who are checking in with us and watching on the replay. And definitely get down below in the comments there and let me know you're here. Let me know what you think of these great beekeeping conversations we're having here today. Definitely. And also, if you are here with us live, though, and you do have any questions or comments or anything, definitely be sure to jump into the chat here and join in with everybody in the conversation. I'd love to hear what you've got going on and growing on in your gardens, or any questions you might have about bees and beekeeping as we get to talking to our guest here a little bit later on the show. And we just might feature your question on the show. We won't be able to feature all questions, but we're definitely going to try to get to as many as we possibly can. So definitely drop in those questions for me and our guest as well too. So check the descriptions below too. We got links to our guests and all of our sponsors and our other things we've got going on here in the Let's Get Growing show in the Urban Gardener channel. So definitely check all those links down below. And if you haven't had a chance to check out too, last Saturday, we didn't do our normal show last Saturday. What we did was we moved that to a Wednesday evening special edition of the show featuring our visit to the 2024 National Heirloom Exposition. It was a really great, fun show. We had Sarah from Sarah Seed Shop joining with us there on that live stream, and featured a bunch of interviews that I did with all sorts of great gardeners and former guests of the Let's Get Growing show too as well. So it was a really fun evening, and just kind of getting to celebrate and talk about heirloom seeds and the National Heirloom Exposition. So you'll definitely want to go back and check that out. But as far as last Sunday's Sunday edition of the show, we were here though too. Got back in time from traveling to catch up with our good friend Mark Lachey Colbert, co-hosting with us our Book of the Month Club featuring Marta McDowell, author of All the President's Gardens. This was just a really great book. I've been enjoying all of the books that we've had so far here in our book club this year, but this one was really fun and timely, of course, it being in an election season. But I thought it would be great to kind of check out the fun history of not just the White House gardens as well, too, which was really fascinating about this book is that, she really gives us a great exploration right around the time of the founding up through the years of all around our country as well, too, linked to gardens and different aspects of gardening and the gardening world as well too. I tell you, one piece of information that I thought was really fascinating is learning just a little bit more about George Washington, our very first president, and to know that he was just as much of a garden nerd as I am, and I know many of you feel as well too. So George Washington would probably be right here, right along with us with his collections of seed catalogs and garden books and all of that as well too. But really, really fun conversation with Marta McDowell. You want to go check that out. You want to check out that book, All the President's Gardens. We also announced next month's gardening book club selection, and that's Ashley Thomas's How to Become a Gardener, and just a great book as well too. We've talked about it before. We've had Ashley on the show before, so it's gonna be really great to just feature her book this month and get another great conversation with her as well too. So we're really, really looking forward to this next month's gardening book club selection, and definitely check that out. It's the third Sundays of the month, and that will be October 20th for this next garden book club. So definitely be sure to mark your calendar and join with us here on the Let's Get Growing Sunday edition for that great conversation. Really, really looking forward to that one as well too. All right. Let's catch up. Let's see who we got here joining with us today, and definitely right at the top, let's welcome Jay Dixon, our facilitator for our chat and live stream here today, joining us from Ontario, Canada. Thank you, Jay, for joining with us. And of course, we've got Rick nice and early, jumping right into the chat there. Morning. Right on. Let's see. We've got Jersey Girl joining with us. Great to see you as well. And Adam, our moderator. Hello, everyone. Down the road, right? Yep, right down the road for me in Central Point, here in Southern Oregon. So, yeah, and Rick's a buzzing show. Yeah, exactly. Loving this beekeeping conversation today, and I can't wait for you to check out our first segment today as well too, which we'll be playing here in just a minute. All right, let's see here. We got Darth X joining with us as well too. Great to see you. Right on. Oh, Jersey Girl says, I got my book. Excellent. Jersey Girl was our winner of our book club. So she got her book ready to go. Just again, too, a really great book. Ashley's just such an awesome person. Can't wait to see her again here on the show. Granny Sam joining with us. Hello. So good to see you. Good to see everybody. You all, thank you so much for joining with us here today. And again, we've got a really great show here coming up for everybody. But let's get started right off the bat. What we did is usually on Sunday, we've got our good friend Mark Boucher Colbert doing a In the Garden segment or joining with us live or something like that. But every now and then, and I did this a bit last year as well too, is I would jump in and do a little bit of a In the Garden segment. So I thought, because we're doing beekeeping this weekend and talking with all these great beekeepers, what I've been wanting to do is kind of get in and check out some things locally for me here. And so I took the opportunity for this beekeeping weekend to go catch up with the Southern Oregon Beekeepers Association. So everybody, I hope you enjoy this week's In the Garden.
So, all right, everybody, welcome to In the Garden, and just a little bit different of a segment for us this week as we're talking about beekeeping. I am out at my local Jackson County Extension, and this is where the Southern Oregon Bee Association keeps all of their beehives, and we're lucky to get to talk with Leslie Lundgren about all of this sort of fun stuff that they do here with the Southern Beekeepers Association, and we'll talk about the association, and she's going to show us a little bit into those hives there. I'm really excited about this. I can't wait to dig in. All right, here we go.
Okay, that's good. Smoker. On just about all of them. This would be like the main family home with a nursery in the middle.
Okay.
This would be their pantry where they're storing up their honey to last them over the winter. And then this is probably put on by a beekeeper to give them extra feed.
Now I'm at that point where like, oh man, I want my own hives. I want to do this, but I'm trying to learn as much as I can otherwise too before I even get into maybe even thinking about that sort of thing. But yeah, to me, it's kind of exciting.
Early on in my beekeeping journey, I just watched this guy, I don't even know his name, but he was just talking, there's only one reason to get into beekeeping. So I was just like, okay, what's he gonna, this great secret is if you find them fascinating. You already know that they have their own personality.
Right.
Colonies are the same way. They do too. So I'm checking to make sure our queen is not up here. She shouldn't be, but always check the lid. These are what I would consider rooms. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, just on this third story. Because it's shorter, I'm expecting that I'm only gonna see honey, but we might see some larvae in here too. Do you see in here where it's shiny, kind of liquid looking?
Yeah.
That's nectar that they're storing. You see over here, this part that's capped over?
Yeah.
That used to be nectar, and that's the capping that they put on the top. Kind of like when we preserve food. This looks like all honey up here on the top, which That's kind of what we
Ooh.
expect to find.
From that side, it looks really like
Yeah,
golden.
Well,
in
this
in the
side,
light.
this is called a foundation. That's a template that we give the bees to build their comb, right? So beekeepers can give them foundation, right?
Yeah.
And they're storing up honey over here. So that's why it's capped off. So that's another way beekeepers can just give them just the frame. They give them like a base to build their own comb, and that's their own comb. I'm actually going to pull one more because I can see some larvae and not one of the cat food. So this one, I don't know if you can see, but way down inside there are larvae. This right here is capped over. This is what we call capped brood. That means I'm basing by the color because it's a darker brown. These guys are probably 12 to 14 days old, and so they get capped over at day 9, and then they develop, and when they come out, they'll chew it out and they'll come out as adult bees brood. You can kind of see all capped over, right? Those are all babies developing underneath there. Every brown cell. So here's just more babies. Oh, there she is.
Oh.
Holy cow.
All right.
Right there by my thumb. She just went underneath that.
I think I see
Sure,
her. Yep,
yeah.
there she is. Yep, she's crawling.
Now do you see her?
Yep, right there.
Yeah. That's our mama.
There's our queen. She's heading over the other side.
Yeah, she's trying.
There she goes. I see.
Yeah. There she goes. She's probably gonna go right over. Yep. So we're gonna put them back together. I'm so glad you got to see the queen. I don't know if I can describe to you just how rare that is during a club meeting. To actually
Really?
see her, yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome. We got lucky here today.
Woohoo! A little smoker.
All right, everybody, we're here with Laryssa Lundgren from the Southern Oregon Bee Association. We just got to check out the beehives here, and I'm telling you, for my first time, that was just really, really awesome. Really fascinating to see them in work. I'm
Yes.
so glad that you actually showed us this. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And so tell us just a little bit more about the Southern Oregon Bee Association.
Okay.
And what you guys do.
So we're an association, number one, to support and educate beekeepers. There's a huge learning curve, and I always tell people, invest in your education for your first year before you get your bees.
Yeah.
Because if you get your education after you get your bees, you're going to be trying to play catch up, and it's stressful to do it that way.
Exactly.
So,
and there's just so much to know.
there
I
is.
mean, literally, you were showing me some things, and we were, talking about how they work and all of that, and it's just really fascinating me. Just really kind of how complex it really is.
It really is.
It's really amazing to see them all doing their work and everything like that. But seeing that complexity, I can definitely tell that there's definitely a learning curve that we have to undergo in order to become beekeepers ourselves.
Absolutely. That's why I appreciate the club. Before we even got bees, we started attending club meetings. So they happen every month except in December. And usually there's a topic every month, especially for beekeepers, because it's a seasonal thing. So you do different things at different times of the year.
Yeah.
So the most important thing I feel like is getting out there and checking the hives, just like what we did today.
Yeah.
That happens at the beginning of the meeting for about 45 minutes.
Yeah. So as you're kind of
And-
gathering, you're all just kind of checking out
Yeah.
how the bees are doing.
We're putting on
all
our
that-
bee suits,
Yeah.
making a trek out there to the hives. Yeah, and so that's what happens, just like what we did today.
Yeah.
So somebody will open up the hive and pull frames out, point out things that you see. So even experienced beekeepers will go to the hive checks just to see what's going on, because every colony is different.
So the a bee association, is that you mentioned there are some really experienced
Yeah.
beekeepers, but is this something for really new beekeepers
Yes.
like myself?
Yes.
Like this would be a great way for me to get introduced and
Yes.
learn a little bit more
Yep.
about becoming a beekeeper?
Yep. In fact, in the spring and in the fall, we have bee school. It's an all-day Saturday thing.
Okay.
And so what I love about bee school is that some people attend the bee
But this
school
doesn't.
not knowing anything about bees,
Right.
and then they realize, oh wow, I need to spend more time learning. And so instead of ordering their bees right away, they'll maybe wait a year or two to get their bees. And then other people, and then they come to bee school and they're like, oh man, I need to hook up with a mentor, or I need to attend
Yeah.
more stuff.
I'm probably gonna have to come out here for your next bee club meeting and all
Absolutely.
of that as well too, because again, this is just so fascinating. I love what's going on here, and getting the chance to check out those bees was just really amazing. One other thing too, I was noticing as I was looking at the website and all of that, you guys do bee rescues as well?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's swarms, which we talked about out there as part of the beehive biology. So in the springtime is when they're going to be doing that. So, you know, a swarm of bees will land in the neighbor's tree. And so we have on the website a way for people to just click, enter all the information, and then that goes out into a mass email.
Wish we could
for
do that,
the
but-
swarm team. Whoever answers first will come and rescue the bees for free, because that's a community service that we provide, is catching swarms. But if they happen to make a home in your roof
Right.
or in your shed or in your barbecue, or,
Yeah,
you know, then that's a whole different set of skills. But there's a team that goes out and captures the bees that way too.
That's great. And are some of these bees out here actually rescue bees as well?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw, one of the boxes said, I think Southern Oregon Swarms on the side. So either the box came from her or else the bees came from her.
That's great. And is there anything else you think that we should know about the Southern Oregon Bee Association?
It's free to attend the meetings. That's really what I wanted to say earlier. A lot of people think you can't attend the meetings unless you're a member, and that's not
Right.
true. What you get with membership is you get to borrow the honey extraction equipment, you get to be part of the swarm team, and you also get to vote on business. But as far as the education part, the education is completely free. And our club is really good as far as we have a nice mix of brand new people, some experience, even a few commercial beekeepers, and most everybody whose experience is really open to
Yeah.
just kind of come under
Kinda
my
take you
wing.
along,
Yeah,
right?
come under my wing. Come to my very first year. The vice president at the time she invited me to come to her house to check out her bees.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
That's great.
before I even got my bees, I saw hers first.
So that's just an incredible resource to
Absolutely.
anybody who wants to become a beekeeper. I think that's just really amazing.
Yeah.
And so for everybody else out there, I'm sure that there's got to be a bee association around you somewhere. So if you're
Yeah.
thinking about getting into beekeeping and having your own bees, it's probably a really great place to start.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
Excellent. Thank you again,
Yeah,
Leslie,
you're
for so
welcome.
much for taking us along this really great experience here to check out these
Yeah,
bees.
great day for it.
My first time around some beehives, I'm telling you, it was, and you did kind of give me that warning there too, a little bit about how you feel about it, and I was like, man, I'm just fascinated.
Yes.
I can't wait to get into these things, check them out and everything, and it was really wonderful, and we got to see a queen.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Nice.
That's
That
great.
doesn't happen all the time.
Awesome.
All right, all right. Thanks again to Leslie Lundgren down there at the Southern Oregon Beekeepers Association. I mean, that was just a fantastic visit. It was such a great idea. I'm glad I got to get out there and check that out. Again, this was like my very first time putting on a bee suit, my very first time getting around a beehive and checking out all of these bees. And it was really, really exhilarating, I'm telling you, because first of all, I was kind of fascinated with the idea first, and then get, really excited that I was going to actually get to see them. And then when you're actually there and these bees are just swarming all around you, for someone like myself, and as I explained yesterday on yesterday's show as well too, I was one of those kids that, when I got stung early on by my first bee when I was young, it was, it was just complete fear of flying things from that point on until well into my adulthood, for sure, when I got into gardening and started learning a bit more about how important bees and pollinators are to our gardens. And at that point in time, I, turned my fear into fascination and just, took a step back as they were flying around me to watch what they're doing and see how they're performing their job in my garden to help me produce more of the food that I'm looking to grow. And it was just really, for one, amazing to kind of gain that new relationship with something that you were so fearful of before, and then to be able to kind of take it even further as I've learned more and more about bees and beekeeping and all of that. I'd seen and been around a few gardens and farms already that had some bees, but from a distance. So this was just really, really awesome to be able to get out there and see some bees, live and in person, to see how these hives work. And again, the Southern Oregon Beekeepers Association was just really so awesome and welcoming. And I think I'm going to have to start attending those monthly meetings that they have and start getting some of that, get some more of that knowledge as I work towards maybe even getting my own hives and, in the coming years or so. And again, to just wanting to basically learn a lot more too, because as we talked about there, it's a real complex system and lots to learn about. And again, really, really fascinating. And plus, like we showed there, we got to see a queen too, which is great. I've seen many on videos and all of that, but it was so really cool to be able to get the opportunity to see how all of that works, to see the bee rolling around there in her hive and everything too. So that was just really, really fun. So, all right, everybody, we've got our guest coming up here in just a moment here with us. And if you do, like I said, have any questions or anything like that, definitely jump into our chat there and ask your questions when we get our guest on here in just one moment.
Hey gardeners, thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular videos and features here on the Urban Gardener channel. Our weekly garden journals, and our incredible featured visits.
All right, all right. How do you encourage pollinators in your garden? That was one thing too I had to learn about as I was getting into gardening as well too. Food gardening, growing my own food, small spaces and everything was, you need flowers. You've got plenty of flowers, but you want to encourage as much as you can. And so I started adding more and more different varieties of flowers around my gardens, and even some really, really great local native flowering plants as well too, to really encourage all of the different pollinators flying around. Because again, it's really awesome when you get to learn about how pollinators interact with your garden and the work that they do, and seeing just so many of them flying around and just getting so much from your garden, because the more they're getting from your garden, the more you're getting from your garden as well too. So yep, like Rick says, yep, friendly plants. That's a great way to go. And Jay was also mentioning that she has a Beekeepers Association in her small rural village region. And I'm sure many of you have a Beekeepers Association nearby you as well, too. So definitely take a look and find one of those if you're interested in checking out beekeeping and all of that. And I love the all the puns and everything as well too. We had a lot of fun with that as well yesterday. It's so easy with bees. Puns just come kind of naturally, don't they? All right, everybody, it's about time we welcome our featured guest today for our Sunday edition of the show.
You never know when you might learn something, and that's what this is about for me. These are people that I admire. Please welcome my next guest.
All right, all right. So today we have joining with us on the show, Laryssa Kwoczak. Did I get that right? Oh, let's see here. Do you got your audio there? Oh, let's try that. I'm not sure if I'm hearing here. Uh-oh. Yeah, I'm not sure if the microphone or that's working on it. Let's see here. Let me try to remove and bring it back in here and see what happens. We'll see if we can't get her back in here in just a second here. Maybe if we reset it, give it a chance to maybe. Let's try that. See. Are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, there we go. Perfect.
Hi.
Oh, that's always the fun of doing a live show, though, is we never know when we're going to run into some little audio issues here and there. But great to have you here with us, Laryssa. Thank you so much for joining with us here on our show today. It's great to talk to you about beekeeping made simple. So tell us a little bit about yourself there.
Sure. Yeah. First of all, I love your room. That is
the
best office I've ever seen.
Thank you so much.
I would love an office that looks like that. I wouldn't want to water all those plants, but
yeah, that can be a challenge sometimes. Especially with all the watering I got to do with everything else outside too. It's just as much of a chore indoors as well.
Sorry, what was the question?
I know the plants are so distracting.
They are, yeah.
They are for sure. Anyways, Laryssa, like I said, we just want to introduce you to the audience here. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll get into all of this awesome beekeeping.
Yeah, I am a beekeeper of about 12 or 13 years. Okay. Started in my late 20s. I was grew up in Philly and lived in the city my whole life. Okay. And then a friend of mine, I was living in an apartment building with, just I had a green roof on the parking garage. And a friend of mine was like, I think we should keep bees.
Really?
I was like, I didn't think you could legally just keep bees. I thought you needed like some kind of education or something.
Right.
Official. But
need a permit or you gotta get a license or something. In
Pennsylvania, you're supposed to register them, but that's not the case in a lot of states. And so I was like obsessed with them immediately. It was really weird because I'm a very laid back person, so I'm kind of like okay with anything, and I never really thought much about bees. I met a couple of beekeepers, but never saw a live hive open from like up close, just from a distance. Yeah. And never really cared much about it, but I started reading about them and was just obsessed. So we put a couple hives on the roof of that parking garage connected to the apartment building I lived in West Philly. And after 2 years of my bees dying, the first 2 years, my first hive, the bees took off a week after being there. Like they they call it absconding. And that's when they don't swarm. That's when queen and everybody just leaves and the hive is empty. So I just been telling everyone in the world that I was going to be a beekeeper. And then I put bees in the hive and they just like flew away a week later.
Oh my.
And then my next year, both my hives died. And so yeah,
this kind of goes to show a little bit, even kind of what we were talking about there in that first segment and everything, that there's, really great, there's a really big learning curve when it comes to beekeeping, right? And a lot of us, just like gardeners, we get this idea, oh, I want to garden, I'm going to grow my own food. And then we just get every seed possible. We just jump right in without
It's so
really
exciting.
having a clue what we're doing. Like my first couple of years of gardening was just a mess.
Yeah, I read like every book I could find, and I was living in Philly. I took books out from the university I used to went to. I took like every book out about beekeeping. But like
Yeah.
that woman said in the association, there's really nothing that takes the place of just going out with a real beekeeper and seeing
Yeah.
it live in person. You could watch a million YouTube videos about how to spot the queen, but you'd probably learn more just being out there in person once and seeing it in person. But anyway, 2 years into beekeeping, it wasn't going well. So I did the next logical thing, which was to take an internship in Hawaii and go to Hawaii and learn about bees for 6 months. So yeah, I was in Hawaii for the last 11 years and working for an apiary with 4,000 hives and starting agritourism there with them, teaching kids and people about bees that stop by the farm. Started my own apiary, started teaching people about beekeeping on my own, and then just moved back to Pennsylvania 4 weeks ago.
Really?
So
This
my
is quite a time. This is quite a time of year to choose moving from Hawaii to Pennsylvania, right? But you're from there, so that's kind of really just in your bones, right?
well, I don't. Well, I'll let you know. My husband says that your blood thins when you've been in a warm climate for a while. I don't know. I haven't looked into whether that's true or not. Ideally, we would have moved in June, but he has a business. I had my bees, so it took a while to get rid of all of our equipment. Like moving across an ocean is a lot. You have to get rid of the cars and
So you're basically starting over then, though, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
because you can't really just load the bees up into your suitcase
I
or
will say,
pack them up in a box and ship them over to Pennsylvania, right?
But I have a newfound respect for cockroaches. I love insects. I mean, we've seen some big spiders in Hawaii, scorpions, centipedes, but I hate cockroaches. They bite you in Hawaii. There's those big ones, and they will just come up to you and just like bite your feet. There were so many cockroaches that survived the 5-week trip in our
my gosh.
They lived in my son's car seat because that's where all the snacks were. We didn't think to like empty out any crumbs that were in his car seat, and there were cockroaches that survived the 5-week trip in August across the ocean and the country in this little pot. So cockroaches, yeah, they're a hardy insect. But no, you can't ship bees. You can't ship bees into the state of Hawaii. That's been illegal for a long time. But yeah, you can't really. They wouldn't survive going to the mainland either. So yeah, I started teaching people about beekeeping in person, and then moved it online once I had my son 5 years ago. And at that time, like the online courses weren't a big thing. COVID hadn't happened yet. And I was just trying to give the people on this island place to learn beekeeping because there's not a lot of available there. And that's when I started a YouTube channel and stuff. It's a great way to really just reach a wider audience.
Yeah.
As opposed to doing it on your own. So yeah, now that we've moved to Pennsylvania, we're under contract now. So this last week we put in an offer on a house and are going through all of that. So now the YouTube channel is going to be very different. It's going to be more so experienced beekeeper doing it all over again. It's kind of like what would you have done if you could do it from scratch?
That's a great idea, though.
I mean, it wasn't my choice. It's just the way things went. We're not doing this for the sake of the YouTube channel.
Yeah, exactly.
But
you might as well take them along while you're going through it anyways, and that's really one of the great things about YouTube is learning from people personal experience.
Yeah, I think what people love about it, some people say that they think it's funny when my son pops in on my videos. I'm trying to explain something, and like there he is in the background asking if he can have like chips and stuff. And it's
great.
Like just the real life and the real issues you come across when you show things online through YouTube, as opposed to all those polished things that you see on other
Yeah,
people's.
yeah. Yeah, we like to be as real but somewhat polished around here, but at the same time, you're exactly right. It's YouTube is really that's what it is, and that's what made YouTube so successful and popular as it grew was being able to present personal experiences from folks, everyday folks that that we can recognize, their life and with ours and all of that instead of again, to like you said, some glamorous television show that's perfectly edited. So
Yeah, we put in an offer on a house that was 2 acres. We were looking for places that were like 10 acres was my ideal. We were looking anything like 5 plus. But man, it was so expensive. We ended up putting an offer in on a house that was 2 acres. And when they wouldn't take our lowball offer, we're now under contract on a 1 acre property. And I never would have thought that I would have looked at a property so small with bees. You really have to be careful with people. You can have a lot of neighbor issues. So now
I can imagine for sure, huh?
Yeah, people don't like to get stung for whatever reason. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was checking out all the videos on your channel because now that we're limited on space, we have to get a little bit more creative with how we do things in the garden and everything.
Yeah, exactly. That's our specialty right here. Small space, urban gardening, and working and managing small spaces. And again, it really comes down to what you said right there is just being creative. We got to find creative ways to be able to use the space that we have. And again, like you said, though, bees, that's kind of a, they can, either take the space you give them, or like you said, they can abscond or swarm and go find another space. So I can imagine even neighbors, more so than just maybe a sting here and there, but finding maybe a swarm up on their doorway or in some part of their house that's come from your bee yard. So I'm sure you probably get a knock on the door over something like that too.
Yeah, I've had a lot of issues. I've kept bees on my property, but for very short periods of time. I've always had them on other people's properties. In Hawaii, I mean, land's so expensive. I could never afford like a big farm out there, especially nowadays. If I had gone looking like 10 years ago, it probably would have been a little bit more possible.
Yeah.
So I'm used to having bees on other people's land, but even then, I've always had backup properties. I've had bees like on the people's on farmlands. I've had it on just people's personal properties where they have a few acres. I've had them on an ethnobotanical garden and cemetery, roof of the parking garage. It's just a hotel. Sometimes the hotel actually paid me to keep bees for them. So sometimes you can actually even make some money off of it.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea, huh? And so again, you started in where you're at now. So you're kind of returning to where you started in a way.
Yeah.
But again, what was it again that got you like so you developed a good amount of knowledge about beekeeping. So was it beekeeping that brought you or took you to Hawaii?
Yeah, I was a graphic designer. I was working for myself as a freelancer, and I was really burnt out just trying to like start my own company and working a lot. So I just started subletting out my apartment this one year. I was like 29. Started subletting out my apartment and going somewhere for a couple weeks or a month. And living somewhere else with my computer, just for the sake of giving myself these like long vacations every few months. And one year, the end of the year, I went to Hawaii. I didn't know it was usually expensive to go to Hawaii, but airfare, I found a ticket for $450, like round trip from New York to Honolulu. So I just went there and I found out that they have these things called woofing. It's opportunities on organic farms. So it's a work trade. I was there at this farm, South Point Road, so the very southernmost point of the United States. Very, very remote, very rural.
Wow.
The Green Sand Beach is the closest beach to me.
Yeah, that's got to be a little different. You're out on an island in a very, very remote place, right?
Yeah,
In the
it's
middle of the Pacific Ocean.
the farm was I think 70 acres or 90. I can't really remember. They called it an internship because it was for 6 months, but they had a place for their farm workers to live, and they just gave you room and board in exchange for working there 4 days a week.
Yeah,
When I was working
I've
there, I
always
got
wanted to do that. I've always wanted to do that.
yeah, no, I don't think people are doing it as much after COVID, but it was pretty popular all
Yeah.
over the island, especially on the coffee farms, because that's pretty labor intensive. They had coffee trees, so I did a lot of other things like picking coffee berries and pulping the coffee beans, husking and floating mac nuts, and lots of very, I would consider kind of boring things because I was there for bees, so I didn't really want to sit there and have my hands in a trough full of bleach and water and mac nuts, pulling out
Right.
the ones that were like moldy. So,
Oh, right.
but so when I got to Hawaii, the small hive beetle had just arrived there. Hawaii was a little late in some of the pests
Yeah.
arriving. So the farm, when I interviewed, they had 130 hives, but well, when I looked at the job description, they had 130 hives, but by the time I interviewed, they were down to like 30, because the hive beetle had like decimated a lot
Oh,
of their
no.
bees. And then the week before I was supposed to leave, they're like, we have 8 now.
Oh, no.
So there wasn't a
There's
lot of
just quickly collapsing on them, huh?
yeah, when I got there was like maybe 3, but there was really just one beehive that ended up lasting for the next couple of weeks. So by the time I left, we were back to like 26. I tried to have one hive for every letter of the alphabet. That's how I like named them.
Oh, okay.
So we were building back by the time I left, but there wasn't a ton of beekeeping to start. It was like a very sad and depressing time to be a beekeeper. But it gave me a lot of downtime. So I found another farm up the road with 4,000 hives, and got a
Whoa.
job working for them too.
Oh, wow.
They had lost a lot of their hives too, and they were down to about 800 hives at the time.
From 4,000 to 800?
Yeah, and
Wow.
they were one of the few apiaries that were able to stay in business. A lot of people just like totally went under and just started doing other stuff.
This was because of this beetle?
It was because of the varroa mite. But what happened
Oh.
was like the varroa mite comes and doesn't always kill bees, but weakens them. And then something else comes to stress them out enough to cause the hive to collapse. So the varroa mite came, and then a year or 2 later, the small hive beetle came, and the small hive beetle is very opportunistic. So it just took all of these very weak hives and just destroyed them. So strong hives can usually defend themselves against the beetle. Beetles have a hard exterior, so they can't sting them. But they will just like have a new role for these honeybees, and these bees will just chase them into crevices within the beehive, and then just stand there and like guard it and make sure that the beetles don't get out.
Oh, wow.
So otherwise, the beetles will just live inside the hive, and their eggs will hatch into larvae, and the larva has this feces that's like slime, and eventually it will start to slime up the beehive, and the bees will not touch the slimy area. So eventually you might start to see bees hanging out outside your hive. And if you don't check your entire beehive, then you might find is that hive that you thought was booming because you saw all these bees in the top box or all these bees outside, you go to that bottom box and you see that it's a big slimy mess, and the bees are actually getting kicked out of their own home.
Oh, my.
So, which is something I've seen quite a few times. And so it's just something that you need to like keep the hive strong, and you can't have too much honey on the hive that the bees can't defend, and just keep an eye on your bees, and then this beetle will be their numbers will remain low. But in Hawaii, the varroa mite was not really being kept at bay. It was still new, and when you live on an island, you can't have things like certain treatments shipped over because they need to be sent via a cargo ship.
Mm.
So some of like the formic acid and stuff that normal beekeepers on the mainland would use cannot be obtained in Hawaii, or there were USDA restrictions preventing them from shipping over these treatments. So the beekeepers in Hawaii were really losing, like, you know, all of their bees, and there was a lot of just legal issues and other things preventing them from killing all of the mites. And so I got there towards the end when the small hive beetle was coming in and everyone was losing their bees, and it was very sad, and I had no idea this was happening. But the apiary I worked for with 4,000 hives, they managed to keep a few hundred and then built back up to about 2,000. And I ended up staying there and getting a job.
So is this something that they just kind of had to, so you're not able to bring in things, so you were kind of just kind of forced into maybe more organic methods, natural methods of trying to figure out what's going on with those?
Well, they are actually one of the few organic honey companies in the country because it is so remote. And bees can fly up to a 3-mile radius, so it's really hard to control where your bees are going. But this farm, it's not certified by the USDA. It's an outside certification, but the USDA does acknowledge it. And so, yeah, there are a lot of rules on this organic honey and what to do. But eventually they just were able to bring in the formic acid to kill a lot of those varroa mites and just figure out what was happening. Because at first, you know, they just don't even know what's happening. It takes a while for people to realize, like, first you just know that bees are dying and you don't know why. And then this mite's very small, so you can see it, but only if you're looking closely. And if people weren't used to seeing mites on bees in Hawaii, then it probably took a little while before they
So how do you, so you say you can see them, how do you recognize the, I mean, so like, are they on the bee themselves, or is this something they're crawling around the other,
they are on the bees.
the hive itself?
The interesting thing is that they say that varroa mites can potentially be the #1 cause of honeybees to die. But varroa mites actually need honeybees for survival. I'm sure they would be able to adapt if, say, honeybees weren't to exist in the world and you know, feed off of another bee. But they actually need honeybees for survival, even though they cause the collapse of so many honeybee colonies.
Kind of makes you think of a virus, which is a similar thing. It needs its host to survive, but it's also killing off its host.
Yeah, here in Hawaii, it's, you know, there's pros and cons because there's no frost. So the insects population is very high, including varroa mites and hive beetles. So it's a real challenge keeping those numbers down. But, you know, like I said, varroa mites don't necessarily kill bees. They just weaken them. They might abscond and take off as a last resort to clear the hive of this parasite, or
so is it just something that you're just kind of having to experience? You just got to have to go through it, or what was like? Was there a tactic or something that they did to you know, repopulate their bees?
Yeah, there's not much you can do to repopulate your bees on an island. It's just a very slow process of finally getting treatments in that kill the majority of the mites. And then as the treatments got better, you know, some of the treatments we had used 10 years ago were very destructive to the hive. It could cause the queen to die because bees use pheromones to communicate, and that queen is releasing pheromones. And when that scent in the hive gets messed up and they're not smelling that this queen is healthy and doing her thing, they can potentially kill her and make a new queen, thinking that there's something wrong with her. But now that these mite treatments are better and there's more options and there's more organic options and stuff, it's really a matter of just putting treatments in during certain times of the year to lower the mite levels. And then there's a whole lot of integrated pest management practices that you can do. So for me personally, I put a treatment in once a year, usually before the start of the honey season. It's normal for most beekeepers to do it 3 times a year, which should be the max. But if you can use integrated pest management techniques to lower your mite levels through other ways, you might only have to treat once or potentially not at all. That then gets into this question of, do you want all of your bees to survive? Do you want to breed bees that cannot deal with varroa mites on their own? And all of those questions. And some people use any kind of chemical treatment, just to keep the bees alive. Some people use integrated pest management techniques and organic methods and other ways to keep varroa mite levels low. And then some people say that the bees need to be able to deal with varroa mites on their own without human intervention. And the ones that can will, and they're the ones that should continue to multiply. And the ones that can't do that on their own should not, whether that's with organic practices or not. They don't want to do anything. So there's a wide variety of ways you can approach beekeeping.
Yeah.
I try not to tell people what's the right and wrong way. I just want to educate people on their options so that they know what to do for themselves. That's kind of like the point of my channel is I'm trying to simplify why you do what you do and explain the process behind this, like thought behind these things. Like I just put out a video today that's just called like when you do what you do, because you're never going to find a YouTube video that is someone's talking about your exact problem in your exact situation and the exact time of year it is for you and your same climate zone. So there's always this question of like, is this right for me, or is there a different solution that better fits my situation? But if you understand a little bit more about why we do what we do to fix the problems, then you can alter it a little bit to best fit you and understand what you need to do. And that was really the hardest part for me when I was getting started.
Yeah. And again, too, as I mentioned before, I like the idea of, beekeeping made simple, especially after my visit yesterday. If I, seeing everything, hearing all of this information, and then now I'm like, oh wait, this is a little bit more than what I was thinking about. Just like most anything else, there's things that are just maybe a little more complex than what we originally think of when we're fascinated, I guess, in certain aspects of this stuff. And that's kind of what I like about what you're doing, is in the idea of making it a little bit more simplified. So, break this down for me, because it seems complex to someone who hasn't even gotten into it. And I'm sure it was for you, and you've spent a lot of time over the years getting to learn all of this sort of stuff.
Yeah, or sometimes people will oversimplify it and they leave so much out. And you're like, no. That's not I mean, there's a hive that you turn the tab and honey comes out, but that's not like all you do as the beekeeper.
Right, huh?
There's more to it. There's some of these beekeeping books are just like, 10 pages long, and it's like boop, boop, boop. These are the 3 things you do. And you're like, no, it's there's so much.
It's kind of trying to find that happy medium of taking something that's complex and not making it over simple, but simple enough for people to be able to kind of work their way into it.
Exactly. Gardening is way harder than beekeeping. It's like so much harder. So much. I mean, it's like like in Hawaii, you'd think it'd be easy to grow plants, but it just we were in a semi-arid desert, was the climate zone our home was in, so it got so hot and dry in the summers, and just that constant like daily, like, I mean, you go on vacation for 2 weeks, like you can't just leave your plants and be like, okay, you got this. And even with bees, like you have a small hive beetle, you have a varroa mite. Wax moth is kind of like a pest, but not a big one you have to worry about too much. It's not too hard to figure out. And that's it. Like maybe ants, maybe wasps. But with plants, it's like every plant has like its own problem.
It's kind of true,
like, what is this white stuff on my leaf? What is this thing? Why are there holes in my cucumbers? I'm like, I can't. I get so frustrated with gardening because it's like I feel like I need to take one summer and add just like one new plant to my garden. That's all I can handle.
Yeah, that's kind of what our advice is for most of us experienced gardeners, is to not do what we do, in a sense, we grow something and then all of a sudden we want to grow everything. And probably the best bet is to just kind of take it a little more slowly, learn different varieties of plants, what they require, whether they're warm weather, cool weather, that sort of stuff as well. But yeah, I, I can agree to a certain extent that it's pretty complex, and especially looking back on, as I was mentioning too, those first couple of years of my garden, I was trying to do everything and it was just terrible. And I had to work through so many different things I had to learn in order to kind of get things in where I'm actually, a little bit more successful today. I just say a little bit because
benefit.
we still deal with tons of stuff anyways, no matter how good you get at it.
Even in Hawaii, like there's always just like a new pest that's arriving that's destroying the coffee trees or those trees. It's so I mean, gardening isn't any easier. You just don't have as much of a I I guess the stakes aren't as high to a certain extent. Like because these bees, you just like feel so guilty if the hive collapses over winter, and you're not as sad. I mean, you're still
Yeah.
sad if a plant dies, but not as much as when it's like these living creatures.
Yeah, I was kind of talking about that though too. I really on that aspect with our guest yesterday was that with plants and all of that, they're a bit more, in a sense, emotionally forgiving, because they're just, plants will just do some more. I mean, we get really attached, we're especially if we're those of us who are starting things from seed and we get them all the way up to a certain size, and then again, like you say, something's either eating them or some sort of weather issues beating them down or something like that. But at the same time, they're plants, we just start some new plants or we start with another one or anything like that. But bees, I mean, this is a living, I mean, plants are living, but I mean, these bees are just, I feel like more, I would just be more worried about how I was caring for them than I do with the plants in my garden.
Yeah, it's the only one of the big things I try to really uh, like push on my students is that these are not your children. This is not like a domesticated animal that you have in your home. It's not your dog or your cat. It's definitely not a child. You cannot control what they do. Like I had interviewed a very experienced beekeeper. He's written a lot of really popular books, and he even said, like, if you are trying to say, how can I get my bees to blah blah blah, like, stop yourself right there, because that's their first problem. They do their own thing. They feed themselves, they gather water, they close up their hive, they disinfect the hive, like, they guard the hive, we all are familiar with. Like, they do their own thing, and you cannot force them to do what you want them to do. The best thing you can do is say, like, this is what I think my bees are trying to do. This is what's going on in my environment. How can I help them? How can I, like, assist them in this process, unless they're doing something really stupid and you know better. As a parent, that's like a lot of the time with my kids also. But like, okay, it's fall's coming and they're trying to make a new queen. Like, okay, no, that's not a good idea. I know I have the weather forecast on my phone. I'm telling you, don't do this. You're not going to be able to survive winter if you swarm right now. But a lot of the time, it's just the bees know what they're doing, and you really have to, like, a lot of problems stem from the beekeeper getting too involved and just causing more problems for the bees.
Yeah, I probably find that to be a very similar thing for gardening as well. Sometimes we just get too involved and we're trying to over care things, and that causes problems as well.
Yeah, I am an overwaterer, that's for sure. I'm a succulent. I'm a succulent plant person is the best point.
Yeah.
I overwater it and then I forget about it for too long, and that seems to be.
And yeah, that's again, succulents aren't mine because I'm on top of everything too much, and I think that's my problem with succulents for sure. So, all right, real quick here, let's go back again. So you were working in these different farms. Was this the organic honey company that you worked with that led to you starting your own apiary?
Yeah, I worked for them for about 7 years. While I was working for them, I started my own hives. You know, just a lot of people would call saying there were swarms and they didn't want to deal with that stuff. They were busy. You know, they had
Yeah.
thousands of hives. They only had about 7 beekeepers running 2,000 hives, and the hives are in yards of 100, and these yards are not on their property. They're at least an hour away, up to
Wow.
2-hour drive away. So it's a lot for them. They're really most of the time on the road, just driving around. And I just wanted to try things my way. The owner is a 4th-generation beekeeper. His dad, he grew up keeping bees in Georgia, and then his stepfather started that apiary in Hawaii. And I would just always ask him, like, well, why do we have to do it like that? And he would just like tell me, just, just do it. That's why.
Oh,
Like, and
oh,
sometimes I just wanted to try it on my own and see, like, well, what would happen if I did it this way. And I wasn't going to do that for their bees because that's their bees and they're paying me to do what they told me to do. Like, I understand
right.
the purpose of being an employee, but I got a little tired of that. So I just wanted my own hives. And I went out with the beekeepers to manage the yards at first, but the majority of my time there was they called it a beekeeping museum. And it was like a shop, and they had memorabilia from their family from over the decades. And then we started tours. So we brought in 10 hives and fenced it off, and we would do like an hour tour where I would open up a beehive and just like show them the queen, pretty much like what that woman from the Bee Association was doing, and explain how the hive works. And then we would do a
Yeah.
honey tasting and explain the benefits of honey and all that stuff. And so I did that like 3 times a day, 4 days a week.
Was
I
this what you called the bee sanctuary?
uh, yeah,
I'm just reading off of when I was checking out your website earlier.
yeah, well, no, that would be like another space that we had, but
Oh,
that part was just I was like agritourism, and we would have class trips and people visiting Hawaii and stuff. And
yeah.
that was also, I guess, just a start of me doing more teaching people about bees versus the honey harvesting. I started to see, like, I don't want that big truck and the
Mhm.
warehouse and all of that machinery to harvest the honey and the barrels. And like, I mean, each honey
Yeah.
barrel weighs over 600 pounds.
Oh,
They're going out to a bee yard, and just pulling 1 to 2 boxes. They're 30 to 50 pounds each, throwing them up on a truck that's over the height of their head.
mhm.
And I'm like, this is not for me. I don't want to do this.
Right.
And you also don't need to really know that much about beekeeping to work for these apiaries, because
Yeah.
they're just telling you to go out to a yard and pull boxes off a hive. You're not like,
Yeah, you're not getting into the process. You're just doing a certain thing to get a job done.
yeah, so that wasn't really for me. So then I stuck with the tours and teaching people about bees and managing the ones that they had locally at the farm for education purposes, and then started my own apiary and selling my honey on the side. And I eventually stopped working for them. I just went back to graphic design and was doing graphic design work for them part-time, and then also running my own apiary, and selling honey and doing classes and stuff, because I liked as much as I love teaching people about bees, doing a tour 3 times a day teaching people the basics of bees. There's only so many times you wanted to answer, like, so is a worker bee a male or a female? And like those
Right.
basic questions, I wanted to teach people how to like be a beekeeper and like get more in depth to like the real nuts and bolts of how to keep a hive alive and manage them and understand like the inner workings of a hive, not just the basics of honeybees.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really great. So let's see here. Why don't someone jump in and talk about answering some questions here? We've had a few questions come in here as we're talking. So let's see. Let's ask you a couple of questions. Let's see. How much space should a colony have? I'm like boxes, I guess, or whatever. We were kind of looking at the different boxes or something, maybe.
Well, To start out, bees are in a pretty small space. Like
Yeah.
usually start out in just one small box, and usually don't get up to be more than like 3 or 4 boxes, depending on how healthy your hives are. But if you're talking about like space in terms of you're putting them in
Do
your
they
backyard.
yeah, or do they just get to, like, a maximum size, does
I've
the
seen photos in Hawaii where the beehive was taller than the beekeeper, but that was
oh,
before the varroa mite arrived. I have
oh,
not seen a beehive that tall since. Only if you were to like put multiple queens in the hive and do something that was like a little put excluders and essentially stack 2 colonies up on top of each other. You can
got
then
it.
make beehives really tall if you were so inclined to want to play around with that. I don't recommend it. Those
Yeah,
boxes get heavy and you're like getting up on a ladder and stuff. But that's
yeah,
things that people might do for fun just to experiment once
because
they're
they're stacked on each other, right? So if you need to get to one that's down here, you gotta take all the ones from the top to get down to that one, right?
and so you have to have queens release pheromones. So if there were 2 queens in the hive, they would try to kill each other.
Mm,
So that's why you need to have space in between the boxes with the queen on it to separate them and not mess up with the pheromones. And you'd want queen excluders so that the queens couldn't get through and make their way to the other queens. And yeah, if you were to have a lot of boxes stacked up, and you want to see the bottommost box, you have to take all the boxes off up above that and put them on the ground. And
yeah,
so when all the bees are coming back to the hive, and all of a sudden their hive that was 5 boxes stacked up is like one, you're going to start to see that there's going to be like this cloud of bees that are congregating in front of the stack where their hive was, and it's now not what it was. And it can be um it can be a lot. You need to move fast. You want to put
yeah.
it back so that the bees can get back into their home and they stop clouding around and aren't so confused and all that.
All right. Okay, so you also list on this question here. So you said that you've just now moved back to Pennsylvania. You got a 1 acre property you're going to go to. So they're asking how many hives do you have? Well, how many hives do you plan on having for a 1 acre space?
You know what? I have to call the township tomorrow to
See
see,
what you might be allowed, right?
because you know what? I can only find things about chickens. I have yet to
Mm,
find, because yeah, that's the start. Is if you anger a neighbor, you need to make sure you're doing things legally first. Uh,
yeah.
And
Right.
then you want to make sure you don't make your neighbors upset. But if they were to get upset, you want to make sure that they can't call the county and have everything just shut down immediately. I've already actually emailed a bunch of places, and I plan on contacting the local association there and reaching out to more people. My goal is really to put the beehives. I might put like 2 or 3 on the 1 acre after I get to know the neighbors and see if
Mhm.
this is something that would work for them. Um, some people like to just put beehives places and wait to see if neighbors complain. I've done
Mhm.
that and it's not worked well for me in the past.
Mhm.
So um, I've had people say like your bee stung me and stuff. And
Yeah.
so I put like 1 to 3 hives on the acre. And that is because there are neighbors on either side, and behind that is a road. Um, So the plan is to put up a fence and to keep the trees that are bordering the road, and then to put the beehives there in the back of the property, and then to put the fence up in front of the beehives. So the beehives wouldn't be in the fencing. I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. So I'm not
Yeah.
only concerned about neighbors, I'm concerned about my kids having a friend over that doesn't know that he's allergic
Mm,
to bees,
right.
getting stung and dealing with that. And that is, we have an EpiPen, but that's still something that you don't want to have to deal with, especially with small kids. Um, they're
Yeah.
not going to like notice like their heart racing and palpitations the way.
Exactly.
So it was better when they were in the city, but they were on a parking garage, because even though that was just an acre as well, there weren't that many people up there. And so low
Mhm.
traffic areas are best. It's really not a matter of like how big of a space you have. It's just like, are there pets going there? Are there lights? Bees will
Mhm.
be attracted to lights. Is there a pool nearby? Because it doesn't matter how many water sources you put out, they
Yeah.
like pools.
They like pools.
Pools. It's so annoying. And once they find this water source, it can be really hard to get them to go to a new one. They like
Mm,
chlorinated water. You can put things in your water to make it a little bit more attractive to them, other than, just putting like, fresh spring water or filtered water out. But you really just want to, one, have it not in a high traffic area where people aren't going to be going, where there's not going to be lights. Ideally, there's going to be shrubbery or fencing around it, because bees will fly at a certain height and then come down to their entrance. Their entrance is usually pretty low on most beehives. So if you have a low entrance that's like 2 feet off the ground, what you
Yeah.
want is to put shrubs or a fence in front of that. The front entrance facing the shrubs or the hedge, so that the bees will go to the height of the fence and then come down right before they go to the entrance of the beehive. And that forces them to fly like overhead at like a higher height. They will, when I first got bees, I had also just bought a mandolin, and I would sit there in my like lawn chair next to the hive and like play on my mandolin, like trying to teach myself the instrument and watch
Right.
them. And they would fly into my head. Like they would just like bounce off.
Really?
They are just like on a mission, and they're just like zoom, 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 like at the hive. And I was a couple feet away from the hive, but kind of like head height with their entrance.
Oh my, yeah.
Just like fly right into me. They wouldn't sting me, and then they would just like, they're a
Because
little,
they're just trying to pass by, really, when it comes
just
down
like,
to it.
they're just in a rush, and they're kind of clumsy sometimes. If you watch them at the entrance, you'll see them like bump into the hive and fall down and bump into each other and stuff. Like they're kind of so yeah, you just want them to not have that flight path to be low to the ground where people are. So I'll try that as my plan for 1 to 3 hives, but I would like at least 10 hives for educational purposes. And for that, I am looking for other properties and farms. Any farm that I see a lot of corn on is a farm that I don't talk to, because I'm avoiding things that are going to have spraying going on, which can be tricky. I understand that some people need to spray in order for their crops to survive, but I don't want my bees being sprayed.
Yeah. Or consuming sprayed pollen.
But like I don't look to harvest my honey anymore. It's really labor intensive. I have a free course on YouTube about how I started my beekeeping business and the ways I've made an income from beekeeping. And I started out with selling honey, and I did that for a while. I sold it to the honey company, the bee farm that I worked for. They bought my comb honey. But I made a lot more money and preferred teaching people about bees, selling packages of bees, and getting paid by like that hotel and other people to keep bees on their property than selling the honey. So what I offer is that I will give the property owner 50% of the honey for them to put in their own jar with their own label to sell at their farm stand, or like the hotel would say that they used it in their kitchen, when they're marketing and stuff like that. And that's usually like the bargain that I offer with the property owners.
Well, that's great. Yeah, finding all the different ways of being able to market and make income from doing that. That's pretty great. Besides the honey, because that's what everybody would really probably naturally go to, right?
To sell honey, I just you do it for a couple of years, and you get, it's like with everything, you get so excited, and you make your little jar and the little label, and you and then after like 500 jars that you've labeled, it's just like
right.
Great. Luckily, honey, it never goes bad if you've harvested it properly.
Yeah,
it can sit in your basement for decades, but still, it's also a hard thing to sell. I found people don't use honey like they use tomatoes and greens and berries and stuff. Even the coffee and Kona, people would pay like $40 for this little bag of coffee and it would be gone in less than a month. But they'll buy that jar of honey, complain that it's $20 for like 16 ounces, and then they'll use it for 6 months and you won't see them again. So it's a hard sell compared to other farm products. I think things with a shorter shelf life are much easier to sell than the
higher demand.
yeah.
Right on. Yeah. So, actually, kind of, I saw this. There was a question again earlier, which kind of talked about, you were talking about rooftops. You discovered them on rooftops. You've done some of those. That's kind of what I'm thinking about as well, too, because I've got this really cool kind of flat rooftop. I'm more urban, though, too. So I'm definitely going to have to look at some of those considerations about neighbors and things like that for sure. But I have this cool like rooftop up there. But Jersey Girl mentioned earlier, too, rooftops can get hot. So like, what are our considerations if we're thinking about that sort of thing, and maybe heat, where some of us live in like warmer, hotter areas?
Yeah, with that roof was a green roof, actually. So there were people with gardens up there. When I asked the owner, the superintendent, if I could put bees up there, he said, if the owner doesn't find out, I think it won't be a problem. I was like, all right, got it.
Ask forgiveness, but for more than permission, right?
Yeah, the guy would like leave a very large space. He wouldn't mow too close to the so yeah, this was a green roof, so we didn't have issues with heat, and it gets really hot in Philly. I mean, this is like, right off of Center City. So I wouldn't recommend putting them on well, I mean, I know lots of beekeepers that have hives on rooftops in New York City, and they do just fine. But if you're going to have your bees on a rooftop, there are a couple of things to consider. One is that a box, when it's full of honey, is 35 pounds.
Yeah.
So you have to be willing to be carrying this thing a good distance, no matter where your bees are. You either need to be able to drive up to it easily, or be able to rope people into helping you, or
right.
Actually, this green roof had staircase up to it. People had gardens up there, but it was on the roof of the parking garage connected to the apartment building I lived in. So that was ideal, but still, it's like 2 flights of stairs to carry this box. So it's not easy. And then on top of that, it gets hot. Now, bees inside the beehive, it is over 90 degrees inside the beehive, and the bees needed kept at a very specific temperature for the brood, the developing bees. They're pretty good at cooling the hive down. I mean, I had bees at that hotel that was right on the beach, and it got very hot and very sunny there. You really want your hive to be like a light color, white, or very light in color. They make lids that you can either get a white lid or one that is aluminum, and so it reflects the light. I mean, if there's not going to be any shade, that's also something to consider, not just for your bees, but for you, because you're going to be sweating your butt off in a really. I mean, you're wearing beekeeping gloves. Those things are like sheepskin,
Right.
up to your elbow. You're in this full-length suit, a helmet. Like, I have had sweat drip off my face and like watched it land on bees, and then they're just like, like gross. That was when I was pregnant, because I heated up quite a bit when I was pregnant.
I was kind of thinking about that. Maybe even like a nice kind of shade kind of structure, something that could kind of go up and above the hives themselves, to kind of just at least keep the sun from beating down on it so hard.
Yeah, you're going to need, I mean, even if it is just potted plants that are tall enough that you can have as like some kind of shade for them. But yeah, you have to consider yourself too. Then you have to go up there when it's snowing out to be able to, clear out a space for ventilation for them. And throughout the winter, you need to go up there to check on their food and make sure that they have enough. Otherwise, rooftops are great because they're so out of the way. They're not really bothering people.
And then on that line of what you're talking about, it keeps their flight path up above everybody, kind of thing too.
Yeah, you just need to make sure it's easy to get to and it's not too hot.
Yeah, right on, right on.
I will say though, for when it comes to urban beekeeping, it can, the biggest challenge I would say is just making sure that your bees have enough food, because beekeeping is like really, really easy if you can just, understand what it means to treat for varroa mites at the certain times needed, which, you take a class or something, you can usually learn about that. Okay. And then the other part is just your bees having enough food. When they don't have enough food, beekeeping is really hard. And my 5-year-old son just came upstairs and is
Oh my, that's what you gotta.
sorry.
That's what you're talking about. It's the fun of having children, right?
Just went into the bathroom right next to me without the door closed and is peeing.
Oh my.
You guys can hear that. So if your bees are in a spot where there's not enough food, it can be really hard. Like anything that happens, it can be really hard for the bees to recover. When there is enough food, you can accidentally squish your queen. They can swarm. They're not going to have as many mite problems. And they can just recover way easier. So no matter where it is, you just want enough food for your bees. And it's impossible to know for sure, no matter where you put your bees. But you need to keep in mind that it takes about 1 to 2 million flowers to produce enough honey, enough nectar to make a pound of honey. So when you're looking at the average hive needing at least 35 pounds of honey to go into winter, and the bees need honey to sustain themselves throughout the summer, and they need to eat honey to secrete beeswax, so they need a lot of honey. And that's millions and millions of flowers. So you just need enough food. Without enough food, it's going to be really hard to keep bees. It's possible, but it can be a struggle to get into beekeeping to start.
Right. And so again, you mentioned winter because we were talking about heat and being on rooftops and everything. So that's the primary consideration as you're going into winter with a beehive, is making sure, of course, that they have enough food to get through, right?
Yeah, and there are beekeepers that will take almost everything, all of the honey, and leave them with, you make like a candy, or you can literally just take a bag of dry white sugar and pour it on top. But it's best to leave them their food. They can get digestive issues when they are eating just sugar. So there's supplements that you can give them. But I think it's no different than any other animal. When they're eating the food that was meant for them and having a better diet, they're going to be healthier and they're going to live longer than if they were eating just, sugar.
Yeah. I think we were talking about that a bit yesterday too, is that those sort of things that you would do, like you're saying, sugar or those sort of things, would be kind of like more of a backup plan. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right on. So let's see here. I was reading there too on your website. You want to tell us a little bit more about your beekeeping philosophy as we get into talking a little bit more about your classes and things?
Yeah, I really just try to be nice, to be supportive more than telling people they're doing something wrong. And to not just try to control everything, like beekeeping is not about doing everything perfect. It's not about doing everything at the same time, every single year. You really have to just go with the flow. You have to be observant. You have to just listen. And that's really probably the best part about beekeeping. If you can really get into it and let go of everything going on in your brain. I partner with a I think it's called Beekeeping for Veterans. They're in Canada, and they give veterans that apply for the program a mentor, and they can take my course for free, and they get equipment, and they also have resources to learn meditation. And because the founder of this nonprofit has found that beekeeping can be as very similar effect on your brain as meditation does.
Okay, yeah.
And I would think that gardening is probably the same. It's like whenever you get lost in something that you love and you forget about everything else, That's
Mhm.
like that sweet spot for humans. It's so
Yeah.
hard nowadays, or probably
And
maybe
we can all use that kind of escape and that kind of,
beyond.
sensory change, that sort of thing as well. But definitely for veterans, it really makes a lot of sense with.
Mhm. Or they will also work with people that are first responders, but
Mhm.
they're primarily help veterans, and it's just um, hard for people to, I think, let go of everything else. And it was something I had to do. Fortunately, I think I had my son, so I stopped getting caught up in the business of beekeeping. It was something I was like starting to not really enjoy beekeeping anymore because I was starting to have more hives and was running around to all the different apiaries. And then I had my son and I had to stop a lot of
Yeah.
that and
Yeah.
focus on what was most important and also focus on being present for him. And then I kind of got back into what I loved about beekeeping, which was teaching people and dropping the part that I wasn't enjoying, which was as much more of like the honey
The work.
and stuff.
The work.
Yeah, with every business, it takes
Mhm.
some of the enjoyment out because now you
Yeah.
have that stuff you don't like to do. But beekeeping can really be so good for the soul and the mind if you let go of trying to make everything perfect.
Right. Yeah, again, too, keeping, beekeeping's, simplified. You, there's also a scholarship program for others?
um, yeah, I mean, anyone that contacts me, I haven't had a specific date set up, but I give my course out for free to a lot of people in other countries that cannot
Yeah,
afford it. A few people in India
right.
where it's I mean, there's just people that like are struggling to make profit off of their farm, but
Yeah,
also in the US too,
yeah.
to people that are looking to get into farming and
Yeah, I
beekeeping.
really like that about what I was reading and the things that you're doing and all of that again too with the beekeeping for veterans and that sort of thing. It's just your openness to, again, help simplify a complex thing like beekeeping, but also to kind of really help get that knowledge out there to people who could really use it.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's already made, like I made this course and I continue to update it as needed, but when they contacted me at that nonprofit saying that they just wanted to know if there was a way we could work together, I was like, I mean, just they can watch my course. I don't like I feel
Yeah.
it just seems like I just fell into this easy life, like
What? Oh, wow. Yeah.
to come across like a job in Hawaii and just email them and they're like, sure, come to Hawaii and stay with us for free. And this farm's like, sure, come work
Yeah.
with us. And I'm like, I mean, if there are people that are like dealing with these traumatic things, events in life because they were helping others, like, why wouldn't I just take
Mhm.
something that I am profiting off of and help them too? Like it seems like a no-brainer to me. Happy to just help people that where I can. I mean, it's really benefits us all when you're um giving back to others.
Yes, that's definitely true. And again, too, one of the reasons why I really liked some of the things I saw that you were doing, I feel very much the same way about things in the gardening aspect of stuff as well too. Um, so let's talk about again too, as you talk about you just moved 4 weeks ago to Pennsylvania. So, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but what's next again for you here coming up as far as beekeeping goes, or are there things that are things you haven't yet implemented or ideas that you had that you've been wanting to do?
Um yeah, it's a little scary, but I'm going to be I mean, I'm starting from scratch, so I don't even know anybody in this town that we moved
Right.
to. We don't even buy a property in a town that we have friends in. We just
Right.
So
Great opportunity to be making new friends, right?
yeah, it's I really want chickens.
Yes. Oh, I think again too. I was telling Leslie this at the Southern Oregon Bee Association yesterday, or the day before yesterday. It was like I'm really fascinated, and I want to get into doing bees eventually. But chickens, I think, are my next thing. I got to
They're
do
so
some
much more
chickens.
cuddlier, and kid friendly.
Right.
I really
You don't got to put a whole suit on to go out and go out and hang out with them, right?
I really am hoping to find some organizations out here. I've seen some. I'm just hoping that they're open to partnering with me to do some education. And there was a guy in Philly that I met a while ago before I moved to Hawaii that did this nonprofit where he went to schools and he put beehives on different properties around the area, and a group of kids that were interested would come out and help him with the bees, and they would harvest the honey and sell it at the local farmers
Yeah.
market, and that was money that they used for their program. And I would really love to just start something like that near in my area. I have heard from quite a few people that like schools got a grant to get hives on their property, and I understand the theory behind it is good, but when you just throw a beehive at a school where there's nobody that knows how to keep bees, they want to have teachers and people that are already like have way too much on their plate trying to figure out something so complicated. And I don't think that that's like the best way to use the resources. I think it'd be better if somebody that already knew beekeeping could put hives in different areas and use that as a way to teach kids, whether that's like on the school's property or further away. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
Or working with an organization like maybe
yeah.
the YMCA or something like that, that might be interested in some things like that, where you can really, get into, helping kids in more of like that need basis as well too, that, giving them activities and things that can really help them out.
Like at first I was like, oh, I want 5 acres, I want 10 acres, I want this huge property. But like we went to these properties, and my husband's an electrician. He's like, I'm not buying this house from the 1890s. He's like, do you know how hard it is to redo the electrical in this house?
You're right.
Like, I'm like, well, I know an electrician and he works for free. But he's like, no, I'm not doing this stuff. But those properties were beautiful and a great place for bees, but they were already a great place for bees. And now I'm just like, instead of trying to find a great place for bees and just putting my hives there, maybe it's more important to find these areas that are a little bit smaller lots and make them better places for bees, because these big grassy fields are food deserts for all these pollinators. And it's really hard for pollinators to go from one spot to another to find food when there's no breaks for them to stop and find flowers and to find water and stuff. So I think it's more important for all of us to just start doing a little bit to make like some little spot for these creatures to be able to survive, as opposed to me taking a space that's already doing great and put my beehives on there, even though that would be a lot easier. I will say there is a deck on this house, and it is off the second floor. And it's very small, and I might put beehives up there.
Oh, there you go.
That would be way up above everybody's head. Like, just no one in the family is going to want to sit out there except for me.
Oh,
But
well, then that would be perfect, right? You and your mandolin and the bees on a deck, right?
yeah, it's a contender. It's a possibility.
Well, right on, right on. That's so great, and really, I really hope a really great future for you. I think it's such a great story, your journey in this whole thing, this whole beekeeping adventure, and what it's led to you. And again, I like that aspect, like you said, you got into something and you just started reaching out and you just found your way all the way to Hawaii. What an amazing place to be able to get to and spend some time learning about all of this sort of stuff, and then moving. Again, too, you said you were, is it Philadelphia or where in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, I'm currently in Philadelphia.
Yeah, okay. So then, yeah, moving back to Philadelphia to continue this, this bee journey that you're on, and I really hope for the best because I think your intentions are great. I love some of the stuff, like you said, you're doing with the veterans and your scholarship program and your classes and all of that, and I just think it's such a great resource, again, helping to simplify, the whole beekeeping, you know, hobby. What would you call it? Would it be a hobby? Is that what it is? I mean, some
Yeah,
people
pretty
would.
much. It is a hobby. It
Yeah.
turns into your life sometimes.
Yeah, it could be, again, too, maybe a lifestyle, right? For those who could really get into it, right? Excellent, excellent. Well, again, I wanna thank you so much for spending your time here on this Sunday and joining with us here on the Let's Get Growing show and talking all about, again, your bee journey and everything too. It's just really awesome that you took the time with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me and for promoting my channel and the course. If people are interested in applying for the scholarship program, you can head over to the website and
Yeah,
email.
we've got yeah, we've had, good links. Jay puts links into all of that sort of stuff there with the chat as well for anybody who's been following along, and also, I do have a link down below in the description here for everybody to go check out,
And
Laryssa's Beekeeping Made Simple.
if people are thinking about, just like thinking about getting started, I have like a free getting started book, and it has the steps to getting started. If you just go to the website at the very top, there's like a big yellow button that says free guide. That's the one you would want to click on. And it's just, I simplify the steps to getting started, but I really tried my best to make it detailed as well, to not like leave out the important stuff, but also
Right.
to not make it crazy long. It's not, like a dictionary size book.
Yeah.
And yeah, like that woman said in the video, it really helps to join the association. I cannot tell you how much bad advice I've seen in these beekeeping Facebook groups.
Oh gosh, don't
It
get me started on the gardening ones either.
It's not, and it's not a great place. You can post your pictures if you like harvest honey or something, or if you find something cool, then yeah, share it with people, and that's a platform to do it. But if you have a question about like
Mhm.
how your bees are doing and stuff, it's much better to talk to people in person and to get a feel for timing and when you should be doing things by getting to know local people. And you might not like everybody at the association. That's something a lot of people complain about, is that people
Right.
can be a little, I don't know, not friendly, or tell them that they're wrong. And it's like,
Mm.
some people are nice about saying things like that, and some people are maybe a little bit more abrasive, but you can't just take it as like, oh, these people are mean and I'm never going to come back. Everybody has their own way of doing things, and you just take everyone's way into
Yeah.
consideration, and
And bring your way of doing things.
and it's just one more piece of information to add, so that it's still important. Every year's different, so you still have to observe your environment. It's like an El Nino year, so that was very different for us here in Hawaii. We had some huge king tides at the
Mm.
beaches, and it rained a whole lot more. It was still cool, like in the 60s and 50s at nighttime when we were leaving in July. It was very different for us that year. So every year is a little different, and everybody does things differently, and that's okay. And it just still really helps to talk to people in person.
Mhm.
The first bee class I took, it was like $5 an hour or something at this like local rec center. And I did that like 13, 14 years ago. And I saw the guy yesterday at this like honeybee event at a farm near me. And
Yeah.
and I said hi to him, and I was like, I told him that he taught me about bees, 13 years ago. And we were talking a little bit, and he was just like so friendly and told me about a local place to buy beekeeping equipment that was really cheap, and a place he likes to go to buy bees. And you don't have to be a member of these associations. Even just going to a honeybee festival or an event that they're putting on and talking to someone at a table,
Mhm.
it works too, because they're taking their time out of their weekend to talk to the public. So they're already there, happy to help. They're not there to tell you you're wrong. They're there to encourage people and to educate.
Yeah, in some ways it's about, in a way, kind of taking time, whether you're in person or online or anything like that, taking the time to kind of get to know somebody who would be a source of information.
Yeah.
And, like I said, it's really actually one of those recent things that I'm still yet to put out. I'm going to put out a whole little commentary on my opinions now of gardening groups. I used to encourage it. We even have our own gardening group here for the Let's Get Growing show. And, but I think my position now is to stop taking advice, stop getting questions answered from just general folks in groups whatsoever. I mean, it's just like you said, there's just so much misinformation. There's too many people out there just who are bent on passing misinformation and that sort of stuff too. And I just find that just to be so rampant, whether it's gardening or you say beekeeping or any other thing that's out there. That's just kind of way online is. And I think if we're really wanting to learn something and we really want to get into something, it's worth taking the time to start learning about and maybe get to know some of those resources you might have a little bit better.
I can't. Sorry. The comments on this, I think people were like preparing with the bee puns before we even got started.
Oh yeah, they were. It started going yesterday when we were talking, and with bees, it's just so amazing how how easy they are, right?
Yeah, it's easy. I once posted something to a Facebook beekeeping group, and the person commented, "Oh, you don't want to do that for whatever reason." And I wrote back my response, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know. I'm not a beekeeper."
Right.
Now, what is the purpose to this conversation on this beekeeping page?
Yeah. All right.
Like some bee clubs have their own Facebook page. Like, check out those.
Yeah. And again, to find local people, local groups like a Beekeepers Association where you can literally personally get to know some people, learn about how they're doing things locally in your area. Because again, too, weather conditions can be different, as you've touched on, the different things like that from one place to the next. So, learning something from somebody, and it's similar in gardening, who lives across the country somewhere in a completely different climate, there's things to learn absolutely in general but it's always kind of a little bit better to kind of get local and learn those things that are really right there close to you.
Yeah, and that's why I have in my course, I always offered, they called it mentorship, but it's really just the option for people to not only post questions online, and I go live once a month with my students, but they can email me anytime. Some students take advantage of it, and I know them really well. And I know just by their email, I know what state they're in, what's going on with their bees, because I talk to them a lot. And some students I never hear from. But, people will send me pictures, and we'll just like figure out what's going on with their bees with the conversation. They'll send me videos, and I'll help them troubleshoot what to do. Or I'll be like, I can't tell you what to do, but this is what I would do. And this is why. And it's up to you to have a little bit of a hunch yourself when you're out there with the bees. But that was the hard part about getting started, was like finding a mentor. And even if you go to bee clubs, you might not find somebody that you can like shadow and stuff, but having somebody that you can personally contact when you have a question. Because I'm a little bit more introverted. If I go to like a group and I'm in a room with a bunch of people I don't know, I'm not about to start going up to people and being like, "Do you want to be my mentor? Can I come to your house with you?" Like, especially when I was getting started, I was in my 20s. And like most of the beekeepers in the club were like men over the age of 50, and like were they going to bring home this 20-year-old girl to their wife and being like, "She's coming to shadow me with my beehives because It's just never
Right.
was for a weird conversation. So I just like kind of sat in the back and never really said much and just listened to everyone's comments. And so I'm trying to make it a little bit easier for people to find somebody that they can talk to about these things without having to go to all of these impersonal places online.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Great advice. And again, too, I don't want to keep you all day. You were really kind enough to spend your, I guess, afternoon with us here on the Let's Get Growing show. And Laryssa, it was just an awesome conversation. And again, so much for all of us to learn. So I hope that that all of you who are watching right now give it, go and check out Beekeeping Made Simple and follow along with Laryssa there and learn a bit more about beekeeping. I know I will be, as I'm heading on my newfound beekeeping journey myself. So again, thank you so much, Laryssa, for joining us today.
Yep. Thanks for having me. Have a great week.
Yes, you too. Thank you very much. All right. Let's Get Growing is sponsored by IV Organic.
Hi, my name is Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with IV Organics, where we grow cool plants and author Saving the World with the Home Garden. IV Organic 3-in-1 Plant Guard has 7 natural oils that protect your plants, not just from the summer heat as well as winter cold, but also protects your plants from damaging insects and rodents. The oils in the product include castor, cinnamon, clove, garlic, peppermint, rosemary, and spearmint. These oils are natural insect and rodent repellent oils, which are encapsulated by the base powder, offering your plants months of protection at a time. 1 application per year will suffice for protection against damaging summer sunburn and winter sun scald, but if the target is pests, application as much as 2 to 3 times a year may be necessary.
All right, all right. Thanks again, Laryssa, for taking your time today to be here with us today and be here with us. So I'm telling you, they come so easily. So we've had just a great, great weekend here on the Let's Get Growing show, talking all about beekeeping with all these really awesome guests. And again, if you didn't have a chance, go and check out our show yesterday featuring Cayman Reynolds from Tennessee Bees. Another great conversation with him. So if you didn't get a chance to check that out, definitely do that as well. Also, again, too, we did have our National Heirloom Exposition special this last Wednesday. So if you didn't get a chance to check that out, definitely go back and check that one out. We've had lots of great fun little interviews with some of our previous guests on the show that I got to meet up with and hang out in person down there in Southern California for the National Heirloom Exposition. That was really, really fun. And then again, too, look forward to next month's book club. We've got our monthly gardening book club on the 3rd Sunday edition of the month. And this next month on October 20th, we're featuring Ashley Thomas's How to Become a Gardener. This is such a really wonderful book. Ashley's a really wonderful person. We've had lots of great conversations with her, so I'm looking forward to that conversation again with her. And also, remember, we're here every Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we will be back right again this next Saturday, featuring our good friend Wendy Fan from Wendyland. She'll be joining with us for our Saturday show, and on our Sunday edition, we will have a roundtable with our good friends Destin Note from Texas Garden Guy and Phil's Figs. These two co-host the Garden Party podcast together too, so that's going to be a fun conversation with them. I've had the fun opportunity of getting on their podcast with them too. So it'd be great to have them both together here for next Sunday's conversation here on the Let's Get Growing show. And remember, if you're here with us right now, before you leave, definitely click that thumbs up, hit the like button if you haven't already, and click the subscribe button with the bell notification too, so you can be notified of all of our upcoming videos and live streams. And definitely share with all of your friends. Remember, we got all of our links down below too, to all of our guests and sponsors and everything there too. So take advantage of those and go check them out. And especially all these great, wonderful guests that we've had this weekend, and they all got channels and they got all that too. So definitely go down and click those links. And if you can, go check out one of their recent videos. Go in the comment section and leave them a comment and let them know that you saw them here on the Let's Get Growing show. Definitely show them a little bit of support for their time that they took to be here with us and share with us all of their wonderful stories and garden or beekeeping journeys. And then also too, one last thing here, we do, again, as we mentioned here just a little bit ago, have our own Facebook group, and you can come join our urban gardener community and continue the conversation and share with us all of the fun things that you've got growing on in your garden. I love to see all those garden photos that you have, so definitely come and join with us there at the Let's Get Growing group and show me some of those great garden pictures and videos and things that you might have. And as well too, check out our sponsor, ivyorganics.com. They've got a really great 3-in-1 plant guard for all of your trees and plants and all of that as well too. I really believe this is an essential thing you should have in your garden shed. So definitely go over there and get some of that. Use our promo code GROW10, GROW10, and save 10% off there. So definitely go do that. Definitely go check out all of our guests, and definitely come back and see us again next week on the show, again, as we have our really great guests coming with us again, Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific time. And I will see all of you then.